What's happening, guys? And another greatest day of the year coming up this Friday, on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, obviously. We're offering up a huge discount over at WagerTalk right now to get my 30-day all-access pass for only $5.90 per day. That's every play across every sport, including all 5% top plays as well. So use code LUCKY, LUCKY, LUCKY at checkout to take advantage of that special offer, which knocks a massive $122 off the regular price. So happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone out there. Make sure and stock up on the Guinness and Jameson ahead of Friday. And until next time, as always, Slán Abhaile.
Welcome everybody to Wager Talk Today. I am Lawrence Presman, that handsome old guy as Teddy covers, and you're watching the best daily all sports betting show on the planet. Teddy, I threw in the word all because that's what we do. Every sport, UFC yesterday, we cover it all, brother. And what are we on today's show?
Well, today, on the second day of the big dance, Ralph Michaels is going to open up the show. He's going to talk about Vermont and Marquette, a game we haven't broken down here on Wager Talk Today yet this week. Looking forward to Ralph's thoughts on that matchup. He's also going to break down some NBA for us tonight, the Cavs and the Wizards. Jimmy Adams is going to join us next. He's got a pair of big dance games to talk about. Pitt and Iowa State, Memphis and Florida Atlantic. Andy Lang is going to close out the show. He's going to talk some Formula One, some women's college basketball, and an NBA prop. Talking Devin Vassell from the San Antonio Spurs. We'll see what Andy thinks about Vassell's chances tonight. My big game breakdown. We're going to talk St. Mary's VCU. And, of course, the presidential address to close out the show if we get 100 likes. Let's set the table. Let's roll into it.
Brother, what a day yesterday, man. Two big upsets. That Virginia game, quite the, well, both really, and the endings were unbelievable. But, man, the madness doesn't take long to become mad, huh?
Sometimes. I mean, should I get into what bettors learned right here and give some opening dance thoughts, or you want to wait till after Ralph before we do that?
We'll bring Ralph in. Ralph Michaels joining us, everybody. You can find him at WagerTalk.com. We call him the Pen, a legend in the space. How are you, my friend?
Doing great. Yeah, it was an exciting day. Like, how can you be a number 2 seed and lose? You know, it's mind-boggling almost when you go through it. But you know what we've seen? You know, with the start of Curry and Morant and the transfer portal, these teams that are lower mid-majors or smaller conferences now all of a sudden have potential NBA players, and it's really closed the gap where we don't have that 116 disparity that we had 10 or 12 years ago. Even though the teams may be 1-16, they're much closer in stature if you look at the Ken Palmer, Bart Torvik numbers from those seedings.
Yeah, and Ralph, you know, obviously this is not betting information, but I think that's also indicative of the fact that so many of these teams, even in the mid-majors, the small teams, they're getting TV time. You know, you go back 30 years ago in college football, for instance, everybody wanted to go to Notre Dame or Penn State or Alabama or Auburn, etc., because those games were on TV. Now it's like the sales pitch to these athletes is, hey, you're going to be on TV too. Everyone will take notice of you. It's all the same thing. And we've seen it in both college football and college basketball. I'm sure there are other reasons for that, but that definitely comes into play. Teddy, with your scowl resting face, what do you have to say?
I'm just interested in hearing you talking about 30 years ago, the world of college basketball. To me, that was interesting. I have resting bitch face. What do you want me to do, man? You know, I can.
You really do.
I can put the little smile on. Yeah.
RBF, everybody. Teddy, RBF covers with us every day, to my chagrin. Well, let's get straight into it, man. We got the 15th seed again here in Marquette. In Vermont. They're plus 10.5. They're playing Marquette. Total here is 142.5. Is there another shocker coming?
Well, you know, I don't know about that. You know, you have a 10-point dog. You don't expect them to win, but you never know. But, I look at this and there's a couple systems. And while the systems make the play stronger, again, I say this all the time, you're never going to want to base a play on a system or a trend. It helps you handicap a game. If you're perhaps on the bubble, you make it a play. If it's a play, it'll be a stronger play. This is a game where I like Vermont for several reasons. Number one, let's fade Shaka Smart. I think it's important to look at what coach has done. Shaka Smart, 1-5 straight up his last 6 March Madnesses. At Texas, he lost his last game straight up. He's lost both games at Marquette. Then I looked at a couple system plays. Number one, dogs of 6.5 or more, or 3 straight double-digit wins are a very solid 16-3. Not a huge sample size, but this Vermont team has been there and done that. You look at what they've done. They dominated their conference. And then when you look at favorites that went under in their last 3 games, Marquette battled in the Big East. Physical games. St. John's, they ran up and down the court. UConn physical. Xavier, a quality team. Those teams, favorites that went under 3 straight games, are only 29.4% in tournament action. And when you look at Marquette's one defense, hey, their 2-point defense is great. Their 3-point defense rates in the 200s. Marquette can expose that with 3-point shooting. The Temple's going to be slow. While Marquette likes to get the ball up the court quick, it's very difficult to bring the ball up. So a lot of time gets taken up. Vermont, a very slow team, number 333. And when I look at tournament champions that are a favorite of -9 or more in the first round, they've gone 16-24, a 40% number. So not a wow number, but a number I came up with. And Prez and Teddy, while I don't have a chart this week, if you'll allow me, I want to talk about a situation where March Madness teams playing in the tournament are off back-to-back overs. Is that okay with you guys if I take an extra minute here?
Come on, Ralph. Yes. It's you, dude. You take the whole damn show. We'll just kick Teddy, Jimmy, and Andy off, and me and you can go for the hour.
Well, I do want to say, Dwayne Bryan and I did a TNA show on the college basketball segment on Monday. There's still some value to going back and watching that show and start taking notes for next year. But how about this? I looked at teams that are playing a March Madness tournament game. It could mean that they went over in the conference tournament. It could mean that they went back-to-back overs in March Madness. It only matters you're playing a tournament game and you went over in each of your last 2 games. How about if I told you those teams are 32-58, 64.4% to the under? So a team off back-to-back overs go under the total. If the team is a favorite and they went back-to-back overs, like Baylor and Indiana today, those teams have gone under 67.4%. And when a team went over back-to-back games and their opponent also went over the total with a total of 137 or higher, so we're taking out those real short 120s, low 130 totals. So one team back-to-back overs, the other team went over their last game, the total's over 137. Since 2017, those teams have gone 6 overs, 19 unders. That's 76% to the under. Again, all 3 situations apply to Baylor and Santa Barbara, as well as Indiana and Kent State, under the total.
Look for some unders tonight. Ralph, I want to ask you about this Vermont Marquette game, because as you were describing, it sounds to me a lot like I was describing Colgate, Texas yesterday. I had to play on Colgate, and
me too.
That's, veteran team. They've been there before. Texas coming off a conference tournament win. Is this the opponent they're focused on? And it didn't matter. Colgate just wasn't good enough. They Texas ran them out early and controlled and then dominated down the stretch. Do you worry about that type of scenario for Vermont today, or is this Shaka Smart's the guy we want to bet against at this time of year?
Well, again, a 3-game sample size isn't clearly a play against, but you have a quality player in Anthony Lamb, who's the conference player of the year. You have a coach in John Becker for Vermont that last year covered against Arkansas I think they lost by 4 points in the first round. 2 years ago, 2 years ago, there wasn't a tournament. 3 years ago, they covered as well. So an experienced team that can slow the ball down, that can shoot the three. I think the difference there is when we look at Texas and their body of work, they're quite a bit a different team than Marquette. Marquette's an offensive first team without that defensive presence. You know, it's weird to say you got a Shaka Smart team and you don't have a defense, where Texas has a top 11 defense as far as Ken Palm's efficiency ratings. So they have potential to shut opponents down on the defensive side with an incredible offense. I don't think Marquette is that same type of team.
Well, Michael's joining us, everyone. You can find him at WagerTalk.com. He is an exclusive handicapper with us, and we're lucky to have him. Ralph, let's move our attention to NBA. We're going to look. Betting opportunities are betting opportunities, and frankly, if you've got a lock in badminton today, I want to hear about it. So, NBA, we got the Cleveland Cavaliers playing Washington. Cleveland now -5.5, -6, total of 220, which in this day and age is a medium total. How do we bet this game?
Well, Prez, it's a medium total because the Cavs are the #1 defensive team as far as points per game are allowed. They're a little bit less a defensive presence with Jared Allen out. He's missed the last 3. He had an eye injury, still out a couple games here. But I do like the Cavs in this situation. They're off a Philadelphia loss. They're off a home loss against an excellent team. Embiid went off. But the Cavs were irked even more after that game. With about 5 minutes to go, Embiid got his 6th foul, and it was overturned. And he came back and he had a strong finish, and Philadelphia beat the Cavs. So the Cavs were fired up on that. But you look at Cleveland, you know, as a home favorite, they're 62.5%. Solid play. As a home favorite of 3 or more, they're 66.7%. It gets even better. If they're off a loss, they've gone 14-6 against the spread, 70%. If they're off a loss and a home favorite of 3 or more, they've gone 9-1 against the spread. Wizards 6-10 on the road off a home game. And you look at the Wizards, their last 5 games, you think they have some offensive presence going, but they played Detroit twice, they've played Atlanta twice, and they've played Philadelphia. Well, guess what? Detroit is number 29 in points per game defense. Atlanta is number 24 in points per game defense. So 4 of your last 5 games were incredibly poor defensive teams. And now against Philadelphia, they scored 93 points and lost by about 20 points. Again, I think the Cavs have proven they're good enough at home to bounce back against teams when they are the better team. This is an actual client release. I'm writing up a promo right now. My NBA #1 last year, #1 the last 2 years, 19-6 NBA run. But don't buy my NBA play tonight. You just got it. 3% play, game number 514, the Cleveland Cavaliers.
So, do you worry at all, Ralph, about the return of Kyle Kuzma to the lineup? Because in my mind, Washington's a different team with Kuzma in and out. And when Kuzma's on the floor, the ball flows, the offense flows. When he's not, it sticks a whole lot more. Kuzma expected to play tonight for the Wiz. Does that concern you at all? Or is that, look, let's just back the Cavs at home. They've been cashing in this role all year long.
It is. And I do watch a lot of the Cavs. And like I said, obviously I'd like to have Allen in. But, you know, you look at what they've done recently, and they can have a different score each time. I started to break down when Mitchell's not the leading scorer, because he tends to get excited when he's the second or third scorer in a couple games straight like he's been. But I wish he wasn't playing. I wish the best player or the second best player on the team would always miss the game. But it's not going to faze me in this situation. When I look at the body work of Washington year to date and the body of the Cavs year to date, in this situation, this is more a situational play than it is a matchup play.
Ralph, what do you got to promote?
Well, guys, you know the WagerTalk MLB guide is out for free. It's on the front of Gold Sheet. It's on my homepage. It's on my son's homepage. A bunch of conference previews from a bunch of Sports Memo, WagerTalk, and Gold Sheet writers. My son and I did 2 pages for each team, breaking down the rosters, who's back, who's gone, who's a free agent. last 5 years, looking at teams, their over under win totals, their percentages, and for those that like some TNA, 68 different money line, run line, and over under situations for each of the last 2 years for each team.
Well, Michael's one last question. One of our listeners, watchers, viewers, fans, Javier, he wrote you maybe on Twitter. I don't know. He wants to know if it's possible if you could repost the NBA teams that play back to back in Los Angeles. There was a chart you did about that.
Oh,
Well, Michael's
Ralph appears to
gone.
have frozen.
Javier, I tried,
Sorry.
my friend. I tried, but I will call Ralph after the show, Javier, and I will ask him to repost that on Twitter, so no worries. Teddy covers, my brother. What did you learn in the wonderful world of sports betting?
We got to talk about some opening day big dance thoughts. Look, it was not a fun night, unfortunately, for myself and my clients. We'll see if we can turn that around today. That being said, for as bad as the day was for me, it wasn't as bad as that Virginia kid who made the awful pass. You know, it's not often that literally one bonehead play cost the team a tourney game. This one did. And it's worth noting, the last 6 years, the Virginia Cavaliers, one national title, one no tourney for COVID, one NIT bid, and 3 first-round exits as higher-seeded teams. That's not a strong track record for Virginia. Let's see. Tough beats. There was a couple that stood out. Charleston, they were tied with San Diego State, under 3 to play. It was a 3-point game with under 20 seconds to play. They couldn't cover the 5.5. Mountain West gets one team to survive and advance in San Diego State. Nevada, Utah State, Boise, all wrong, all went home. And the Mountain West continues to be an ATS disaster in the NCAA tournament. I backed Boise with a big game breakdown yesterday. That was wrong. Maybe I've overthought this conference. Maybe the Mountain West, unbackable. The long-term track record and the short-term track record for Mountain West teams in March, not pretty. Lots of sharp money showed for Oral Roberts yesterday. Well, Duke blew him up before halftime. Double-digit chalks. Well, let's see. Arizona, they scored 8 points the last 11 minutes. That's not going to cut it. Minus 15, lose outright to Princeton. UCLA was up 20 in the first half versus NC Asheville. That was a blowout. Kansas by 28, minus 22 against Howard. Took them a bit to get going. Once they did, it was a blowout. Tennessee blew a big lead, won by only 3. Rick Barnes' failure against the spread once again in tourney time. Another really tough beat, and yet, you know, how tough was it? Bama got bet up to minus 24. They were up by 24, and a contested last second 3 at the buzzer, nothing but net, end up winning by 21. CC gets the cover in a game. Corpus Christi gets the cover in a game. They trailed by 20 plus throughout. Texas pulled away late against Colgate. The game was sitting around the point spread till about the last 4 minutes, and then Colgate didn't hit any shots, and Texas won by 20. And Houston, well, they were healthy, and now they're not healthy. Sasser back, and then now Sasser's hurt. They won by only 11 as 20-point chalk. They were tested. So a mixed bag for the double-digit favorites. We won't see many of those after this weekend. That's some tourney thoughts from me, Prez. Back to you.
Teddy, I got to tell you, man, tons of respect because, look, that what did you learn last night's segment? Today was easy. You did a summary of yesterday. Great. On a whole, and I was thinking about this last night, every day you have to come up with something that you learned from the night before. There's no chance I could do it. I mean, it is like, how many minutes and like how long does it take you to come up with something that you learned from one day ago every single day?
Well, I mean, let's be realistic. Okay, it's not like I learned something and I use it in every day and I use it in this show. That said, from the time we finish until the time I write up what I'm going to do, usually before I go to bed, I'm thinking, what did I learn? I'm paying attention to something I can use for that segment the next day. It's not constantly on my mind, but it's in the back of my mind. If I see something, I see a tweet, if I see something, if I'm watching a game, I try to jot it down, and then that's what comes in that segment the next day. Same thing with big game.
Yeah,
I mean,
dude.
you and I both, you have Presidential Address. I have a big game breakdown. We have plays we have to put out for that every day. We have client plays we do every day. Not,
But that's different. That's different to what did you learn? And kudos to you. That is a tough segment to do. You do it well every single day. Guys, I just wanted to let everybody know today I have my second 5% college basketball play of the season. I've literally only had one, and I won it. I've also won 5 of my last 6 days of betting. We won last night by the skin of our teeth, Teddy. 3-3, but we had a 4% play in NHL that took us into the W column. Guys, if you're going to play me ever, today is the day. I have 5 college basketball plays and a really strong NHL play for tonight, including my 5% college basketball play, only my second of the year. Teddy, what do you got going?
I have as well 5 plays today, 4 in the college ranks, 1 in the NBA. You can get them all right now over at WagerTalk or sportsmemo.com. We do have a value-priced all-access pass for those who are interested.
Absolutely. Jimmy Adams joining us, everybody. And Jimmy, you back in the mainland?
Get back for tournament time. Had a fantastic time checking out the Mountain West tournament. And glad to be back and focused on March Madness.
Well, we're glad to have you back, bro. Let's, Jimmy, I got to tell you, we did a whole lot of shows together, and I always thought you Pat Riley'd your hair. Then I met you.
Yeah.
And we learned that it's just cut really, really short. Anyway, nobody cares about that stuff except the stupid narcissist. Iowa State -4.5 against Pittsburgh, a 3:10 Eastern game. Total bet slightly up to 131.5. How do we bet this game?
So when Iowa State wins games, which they haven't done recently, they do so on the defensive end, right? Everyone knows it. And Pitt just beat one of the best defensive teams in the entire nation, Mississippi State, a game that was extremely close throughout. The Bulldogs had multiple chances at the end to win that game and still couldn't do it. So they did it by knocking down 47.4% of their three-point shots. The Panthers were out-rebounded by 21, and they still found a way to win the game. Like, that is obviously going to need to be corrected. They're going to have to crash the boards here. But as long as they continue to make their three-point shots, the Panthers are absolutely a live dog here in my book. And this is also a fate of an Iowa State team, right, that's lost 5 of 7 with the 2 wins coming against Baylor. For whatever reason, the Cyclones just have Baylor's number, but they can't beat anyone else. The Cyclones are a disaster on offense, and they can't make a free throw to save their life. I think they're in the 300s in the nation in free throw shooting, and just not a team that I think you can lay points with right now. Panthers have been a point spread covering machine all season long. They continue to cash tickets. And I also think there's a slight advantage for having already played a game in the tournament, get the jitters out and kind of get into a rhythm a little bit. I think that Pitt getting +4.5, I think there's 5s now. That'll be a play for me and consider them a live dog.
Yeah, Pitt was certainly a good underdog this year. They were a good point spread team away from home. And yet, I got to ask you this. I mean, do we worry at all about conference strength here? Because the Big 12, it was a good year for the Big 12. It was not a good year for the ACC. Is that a factor for you at all here, or is that just we don't even worry? Because in part, when we say Iowa State's recent struggle, they haven't beaten that many teams late. They were playing, in my mind, pretty tough competition. Is that a concern here, the difference between these two conferences?
So it's a concern moving forward. I understand the betting markets are against the ACC and against Pitt, and I would agree with that. Just not for this particular game, Teddy. Iowa State, a team that we have to fade. There's no way they can be laying points. And Pitt, a solid play here. But moving forward, probably a team that you may want to look to fade, depending on how they look in this game.
Jimmy Adams joining us, everybody. Jimmy, outstanding stuff. How did you do day one? What do you got going for our clients?
Yeah, it was a slight loser on day one, but kind of a roller coaster ride here as of late. 3 plays locked and loaded today. I'm going to give you a client 4% client play in this next one. But what has been gold is my 5%ers. So 61.3% over the last year, the last 62 plays.
Nice.
I've got a 5%er going down with you, Prez. So let's both cash those. So huge day. I've got a lot invested. We're ready to rock and roll. But let me get you a free client play here coming up next.
Well, you know what? Just keep going, bro. You don't even need me to set it up. You're killing it.
All right. Yeah. So we're going to look at Memphis FAU. All right. So first of all, I don't want to take anything away from FAU. They've obviously had a fantastic season, 31-3, right? But they got a really tough draw here, and that's unfortunate, in my opinion, against a team that's really battle tested. Look, the Owls, they're an elite team in several categories. They can shoot the three, they play solid defense, and they're a deep team as well. But when you go down the schedule, you're going to find that they only beat one team that's playing in this year's NCAA tournament. That team was Northern Kentucky, a number 16 seed. They did get a win against Florida. That's probably their best win of the season, but a loss at Ole Miss, and the only other game that they really had step up in. They ran through, I think, what we would all agree is an inferior conference. Uh, you know, the Tigers struggle a bit with turnovers, but they can turn you over also. And running with this team, I think, is going to be a real challenge. This is an athletic squad and more experienced than FAU. And more importantly, like I said, battle tested. So just beat Houston by 10 in the conference tournament, right? Maybe the best team in America. I know they're shorthanded, but still a phenomenal win. The other 2 times they played Houston, relatively close games, lost to Alabama by 3. And they're on an ATS tear as well. 4-1 against the spread last 5, but they covered by 15.5 versus Houston. They covered by 34.5 the game prior against Tulane. Like I said, nothing against what FAU did in Conference USA. They have my total respect, but this is a game the Tigers are going to win on the money line. So that's the way I played it for the 4%er.
So when I look at these two teams, in my mind, Florida Atlantic's much more balanced, and Memphis has the star power: Kendrick Davis, DeAndre Williams. Do you worry in general? Would you rather back a more balanced team or a team with the guys with the upside who can make the plays at the end? Are you looking for, because that's an interesting philosophical discussion about this one. Because in tourney time, when it comes to the Final Four, I want the NBA talent. When it comes to early on, a lot of times I want the team that's more balanced. It kind of changes as the tournament progresses. Talk to me about your thoughts in that regard.
Yeah, that's a real interesting point, Teddy. I'm going to take the more talented team, the more athletic team, the better team, the team that's played by far the stronger competition, like I've said, and they've proven it to me, right? They've proven that they can at least hang with great teams and beat great teams. FAU, if you're betting them, you're really banking on what they've done on paper against, I don't want to say nobodies, but significantly lower teams. And they haven't faced a team like Memphis, a team that's playing really good basketball. At the money line price, I think it's hard to pass up a play on the Tigers today, Teddy.
You're muted, Lawrence. That's why you're not back on.
Sorry, guys. I sneezed, so I muted myself out of respect. Then I forgot. Jimmy, thanks for joining us, brother. Teddy, roll your eyes, baby. Roll those eyes. Jimmy,
I
you've
was just gonna
promoted.
go,
Get out of
respect,
here.
yo.
Respect, Joe. Beat that.
Thanks, guys.
Best line of the week. Jimmy Adams, everyone. Guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Then we'll be right back with Teddy Covers, Big Game Breakdown, Andy Lang, and, of course, the daily presidential address.
Have you checked out all the new handicappers at WagerTalk? If not, here's your chance. You can take 50% off your first daily or 3-day all-access purchase at WagerTalk using coupon code TRYWT. Our new roster of experts is 30 deep, covering sports from all around the world, giving you tons of options to choose from. All you have to do to redeem this offer is go to WagerTalk.com, choose a handicapper of your choice, and use coupon code TRYWT at checkout, saving 50% on your first purchase.
It is time for today's big game breakdown. I like to reward the live viewers, so let's talk about an early start game. This one tips off about 90 minutes from now. And I know there are strong opinions on both sides of this ball game. I'm going to share mine. VCU and St. Mary's. Look at the WagerTalk live odds screen. Right now, the Gales -4. Let's call the total 123 as we speak. Again, this one tips off in about 90 minutes. And based on what I've seen from St. Mary's this year, I think that VCU has a single weakness that the Rams can exploit. All right, we saw it against BYU last week. Was able to cash an over ticket in that ball game, in large part because of it. When you put pressure, even with their veteran guards, on the Gales, that's a weakness that opponents can exploit. Okay, they turn the ball over. They play against their own tempo. This is a team that wants to slow everything down. And we watched them blow a 26-point lead turn into a 3-point win. Turn into a 3-point lead. So it's certainly a scenario in which a team like VCU, and they haven't seen teams like VCU this year. They certainly didn't fare well against the better defensive teams that they faced in non-conference action when you look at their results from back in the day. And the Rams came on like a freight train down the stretch. You look at their season-long numbers, you're not going to get a big impression of this team. 9-0 straight up, 6-3 against the spread, 6 wins away from home in their last 9 ball game. And of course, let's not forget, I know San Diego State got the cover yesterday, but the West Coast team traveling 3,000 miles for an early start game is not a bet-on situations for any squad. I don't think it's going to be a bet-on situation for St. Mary's. I think VCU is going to test them, and they might beat them. Give me the Rams plus the points. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Prez.
Teddy covers. We're waiting on Andy Lang, right, Daniel? No Andy Lang yet. So I have a question for you. Do you see any shocking double-digit +7.5, +8 upset going on today? If you had to pick one, can you with no notice?
Sure, I can always pick one. Do I see it? Let's see. I don't think Grand Canyon is going to hang tough with Gonzaga. Looking at the double digits, I don't think Santa Barbara is going to hang tough with Baylor. Kennesaw State against Xavier, maybe that's one that has a possibility. I don't think Fairly Ridiculous is going to hang with Purdue, but Purdue might let them hang around in that ball game. Iona against UConn, they're not double digits. They're +9. That might be, UConn's a fascinating team because the Huskies were they a 4? I don't know. I think they were a 4 seed. And Ken Palm has a 4th best team in the country. All right. So from a power rating perspective, from an analytics perspective, UConn is absolutely considered one of the contenders to win it all. Yeah. They're power rated through the roof. We'll see. Iona certainly hasn't faced a whole lot of defensive-minded teams like the Huskies in their conference slate, although they have played well against teams that do slow it down. That's a fascinating game to me, but UConn might be one that potentially, again, from a power rating standpoint, they're power rated really high. Maybe that's an upset.
Andy Lang, welcome to the show wearing the Indiana shirt. And Jessica asks, talk about Indiana, Prez. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but can you?
Yeah, I don't follow this team a whole lot. I went to school there. I don't follow men's college basketball a whole lot. I have them going out in the next round, if that makes any difference on my coin flip bracket. No, I'm not the guy to ask about men's college basketball. So just going to be rooting for my alma mater tonight.
Well, I'll tell you, man, you are the guy to ask about Formula One. That's for damn sure. You've got a bet for us for this coming Sunday race. Talk to us. What's going on? What should we bet?
Well, let's take a look at the Ferrari cars, and they're getting ready to start practice 2 again. So this bet's going to be off the board, but you can wait until it comes back on after practice is over. We're going to take Ferrari to both finish inside the top 6. This bet would have cashed easily in the last race, but Charles Leclerc blew an engine with 12 laps to go when he was running inside the top 3. So they had to change. They're going to change the engine, and what that means is he's going to get a penalty on the grid. So he's going to be starting in the back of the field, which gives us a much better number. And make no mistake about it, he's going to fly through this field with his new engine. He's going to be passing a lot of the bad cars, and he's going to get into this top 6. My guess is he's going to get into the top 4. His teammate made a couple changes to their engine, but they're not going to receive a penalty. So Carlos Sainz is going to qualify well. He's going to qualify well within the top 6. He's going to run in there. This is a track that you can pass on, and Ferrari cars are much better than everyone else's besides the Red Bulls and maybe the Aston Martins. He's going to be able to get around the Mercedes. This is going to be a really good price because the books are going to over adjust because of the grid penalty for the start. But make no mistake, Leclerc's in a top 4 car, and he'll be inside the top 6 along with his teammate Carlos Sainz.
God, Andy, with all the problems Ferrari had last year, Leclerc must have lost his shit last week. Andy, some guy slapped me. Dude has resting bitch face. His name is Teddy Covers. He can talk about the Indiana game. So smack dab in the middle of your episode, we're hijacking Teddy Covers. Give Jessica the info she requires.
I'm just going to throw 30 seconds on it. It wasn't like I was going to hijack the segment, but if someone asks a question and then he's like, I don't know, ask me. That's what I'm here for. I'm supposed to know, especially in a sport that I cover as opposed to Ferrari, which I don't. I look to the Hoosiers tonight in that over Kent. It reminds me a little bit of Michigan Toledo from earlier in the week in NIT action. I don't trust Kent to get stops, and I think Indiana's defense will be the difference in the ballgame when all's said and done. And it's a step down in defensive class for the Hoosiers compared to what they have normally been facing. So those factors together, I mean, looking at the Indiana side in this one. That's my 2 cents, Prez.
There you go. Brilliant stuff. Andy, while the men's basketball is going on, and we've already admitted that you don't study men's basketball, but you do study women's basketball. Smart man. I don't know if you've ever seen Bill Burr's take on the WNBA in his latest Netflix special. Mwah! But that's a whole different conversation. Andy, Georgia versus Florida State. Women's college hoops. How do we bet this game?
Well, this game starts at 1:30, so this is a nice little 4% treat for everyone that's watching now. You can find this on all the major books. And yeah, we're plus 89 units in women's college basketball this year. So just, you don't have to watch the games to cash these tickets. So we're going to use Georgia and how good they are on defense. We actually played them against the spread against number 1 team in the nation, South Carolina, because they're so good on defense. And that worked out. They covered the spread. So last season, UCF had a lot of great defensive coaches, and most of that coaching staff and team came to Georgia. So last season, this coaching staff, they held UConn to 52 points in the tournament, and they got the same coaching staff that it's tourney time. So look for them to really hunker down on defense. Florida State, they just don't do great in these tournaments. They only scored 50 points in last year's tournament against a good defensive team. They scored 54 against Wake Forest in the ACC tournament, and Wake Forest is not a good team. So this number is really high. It's at 134.5. We're going to take the under. I would actually be pretty surprised if this gets near 130. So I think we're getting an incredible value. Look for Georgia to really, really do a good job on defense. They're going to be playing hard the entire time. There's no reason to bring in bench players now that it's come time for the tourney. So take Georgia and Florida State under 134.5.
So as you talk about the more obscure sports, not that women's college basketball is obscure, but from a betting standpoint, it's not something a lot of people are used to betting. This Ferrari, both in the top 6 prop, that's not anything I've ever bet anywhere. Are these easy to find? If you go at whatever book you have, you're going to be able to bet women's college basketball and Ferrari in the top 6, 2 Ferraris in the top 6, or are these a little bit more difficult to get down on?
No, these are available everywhere. I mean, that Ferrari, that's on all your domestic books as well as others. This Georgia, Florida State. Once it comes time to tourney, the domestics will have all of these lines. That's why I haven't really done many free plays or videos, because in the regular season, these plays come out like an hour before the game starts. But once it's tourney time, this line has been out for a couple days. We've had this up on Wager Talk for a couple days. It's available everywhere. Most people just aren't searching for it, but it's out there on all the major books. I checked before we did this segment, so anybody should be able to play this.
Andy Lang. Andy, you got a prop bet for us. NBA, right? Let's go. Give it out.
Yeah, let's unders can be your friend in props market. Too many times I think we focus on the overs. Let's talk Devin Vassell, under 23.5 points, rebounds, and assists for the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs, they're just using a lot of different players in their rotations. Stats are being spread all across. They keep having different, leading scorers and leading rebounders. And Vassell is just not packing the stat sheet. He's gone under in 6 straight games. This number is 23.5. In those 6 games, he's only gone over 20 PRA once. So he's really not getting that close. They're playing Memphis tonight. Memphis can be frisky at times on defense. So as long as we get a medium to good defensive effort from Memphis, look for Vassell to go under once again. And this is also a Spurs team that they've won a few games recently. I'm not sure they're real happy about that. So if we get Vassell or any of these guys playing too well, maybe see him hit the bench a little bit. But I'll keep riding Vassell unders. Take him under 23.5 tonight.
Teddy, you got any follow-up there? Yep. Yes, he does.
Yeah, real quick. Of course. Vassell to me is a guy who's getting the opportunities. He's getting the shots. There are games where he's getting the rebounds. There are games where he's getting assists. He just hasn't put them all together in one game in recent weeks. What he's played? He played 5 games in the month of March, and he's gotten the double-digit scoring in 4 of them. He's taken double-digit shots in every one of them. It's been the rebounds and the assists not correlating together on the same night that has kept him under the total. Would you rather play an under with someone like that, or would you rather play an under with like your Nick Claxton, where you're playing those Claxton unders where, boom, he's just it's completely shifted how his usage is going to be? Talk to me about the different styles of props that you look.
Yeah, well, I feel like unders can be, bench players, players playing, 25 to 30 minutes, or even the big time play. I mean, look at Joel Embiid. His number is 50.5 tonight. He's gone over that one time in the last 7 games. So a lot of this is playing the number that the books are putting out. So when I talk about Vassell going under, if this number would have been 20 PRA, this would be a completely different handicap. Because, then you can say, well, he went over and he got to 20 in 2 other games. So maybe it's not. So a lot of it depends on what books are putting out as a number. And then, like you said, Teddy, he's just not putting it all together, which is why I focus on this category, PRA, where you need to get all 3 categories to get over in points, rebounds, and assists. If he doesn't get there in rebounds, that means he's got to really, really overextend himself on the points and assists. So I like looking at these guys that just aren't getting it done across all 3 categories. That way you can put them all together in points, rebounds, and assists and take unders there.
Andy, what do you got going for the clients today?
A couple 4% women's college basketball plays. I know that's not on everyone's radar. I can't tell you 5% UFC play is up. We're on a 6-0 run in 4% and 5% UFC best bet. So really excited to cash in on UFC. That's been a really, really nice money maker for myself and clients. We got Formula One that's up. So cashed darts yesterday. We've cashed a couple of men's lacrosse. Listen, you guys know I am not handicapping all the major sports all the time, but we are cashing units. We're around that 60 unit mark for 2023. So very, very happy with the start to the year. Look forward to cashing in some of these sports.
Andy Lang, everybody. And Andy, Teddy loves doing the show with Steve Merrill, dude. So I said to him this morning, do a show with Steve Merrill. I'll do it with you, bro. Anytime, anywhere. You are a top 3 guest to me. I love having you on. Your smiling face, you always make everybody feel good and happy. And I'll tell you, man, I mean, when Teddy is a resting bitch face, you've got resting pleasant face. So get out of here and go today, my brother. Dan, let's go. Cue it up. Okay, so long story short, guys, I'm going to give you a couple of NHL bets that I am making tonight. I do want to make mention, and this is really important. I've got my first 5% college basketball play of the tournament. It's only my second 5% college basketball play of the entire year. I've literally only had one, and I won it easy. So make sure to grab that. I have 4 college basketball plays altogether, as I did release a play on the Xavier game. I also have an NBA total, and my NBA totals are on a 29-9 run. They are over 70% on the entire season. I also have an NHL money line bet, and I'm on a 14-4 run in those. You can get them all together over WagerTalk.com, and you're crazy if you don't. It's a huge day for the Prez. So head over to WagerTalk, take advantage of that. So we got 4 games going today. Let's get straight into it. I like the over in the Columbus-Anaheim game. Guys, as we're moving on towards the end of the season, we're going to see situations where teams like Anaheim and Columbus have nothing to play for, and they're playing against each other. When that happens, I like to see a lot of scoring. I don't think we're going to see people blocking shots in meaningless games. I don't think we're going to see a heavy forecheck. I think we're going to see more open hockey with more space. However, with that said, when these teams play teams that are in the playoffs, they will want to make a statement. They will want to try to get that winning culture back. So that angle only applies when they're playing each other. Tonight, Columbus is playing Anaheim. Take over the total of 6.5. I also like the Washington Capitals in regulation tonight, so give that a go as well. My favorite play of the 2 is the over in the Columbus game. But Washington, close to out of it. This team has to put some. They had a huge comeback win against Buffalo in their last game, down 3-1 going into the third. They came back. They won that game. I think they beat St. Louis tonight. I think they do it in regulation. Have a wonderful day, everybody. We'll see you Monday. Teddy, my brother, take us home.
Sure, that's going to wrap it for the week here on Wager Talk Today. We're going to do it again each and every weekday next week, 9 a.m. on the left coast, noon for you back east. Between now and then, enjoy the games, and best of luck all weekend long.
What's happening, guys? And another greatest day of the year coming up this Friday, March 17th. St. Patrick's Day, obviously. We're offering up a huge discount over at WagerTalk right now to get my 30-day all-access pass for only $5.90 per day. That's every play across every sport, including all 5% top plays as well. So use code LUCKY, L-U-C-K-Y, LUCKY at checkout to take advantage of that special offer, which knocks a massive $122 off the regular price. So happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone out there. Make sure and stock up on the Guinness and Jameson ahead of Friday. And until next time, as always, Slán Abhaile.